We all love a celebration, and we're here to celebrate. Nate's gonna turn 30. We've done so many videos on ropes and standards and PPE, but this episode, we're gonna party. I got two special guests with me that are gonna take us through 30 years of Nate and how the industry was before. So are you ready? Let's go. Time sure flies. A lot has changed in the tower industry over the last 30 years, but one thing has remained the same. Nate has been the unified voice for the tower industry. Joining me here today, I got two very special guests. Craig Snyder, one of Nate's founding members, and Victor Druin, the current chairman of the board. Gentlemen, thanks for being here today.
Great to be with you, Sean.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
I got a little video to start us off of another one of Nate's founding members.
Started calling some people that I knew, like Craig Snyder, Don, and Kevin. And I talked to them a little bit about it, and they were receptive to the idea. And then I thought, well, we're going to have to try to get as many tower companies together as we can. And they would find whatever number they could, and called, and they got towing companies and everything you can think of. But we managed to scrape together 65 people for the first meeting. When I went home after that meeting, I thought, well, I can work with them guys. That's a good crew. And they were excellent.
Craig, after seeing that video, what are your thoughts?
I remember that so well. Bill called me out of the blue. I'm a young guy, I'm like 30, 31 years old. And Bill said, hey Craig, I'm thinking about starting an association. You want to be a part of it? And I'm like, yeah, that's amazing, because I've been thinking the exact same thing. And because I had been working on it a little bit, I had this long list. All the tower companies in the yellow pages, we used phone books back then, under the title towers. Some people that are towing companies call themselves towers. So that's why some of those people that he called were towing companies. We met in Dallas, and there's this big room of tower guys, and we had a little stand on the front. The four of us were sitting up there. It was just cool. It was unscripted. We didn't really know exactly what we were going to do. We had a little bit of an agenda, but it was just an awesome experience that all these tower companies, you didn't talk to each other when you were a tower company in those days. You know, people might dump, sugar in your gas tank is how tower companies treated each other.
Oh, wow.
of your drum hoist. It was a cowboy industry back then, but it came together. We set those bylaws in place, and thank heavens for Bill, because he was a bigger company. He had a little bit more resources, and he could make it all happen.
In 94, 95, what was the industry like that you all came together and said there needs to be an organization formed?
Yeah, well, one of the things that was we were on the leading edge of the explosion of cellular. So cellular started getting built in the late 80s and into the early 90s, but we were just about ready to get 4 or 5 new carriers because the federal government, FCC, was going to issue the spectrum. So we knew the industry was going to grow, but the industry was getting looked at by organizations like OSHA. And some of us were getting cited for some ridiculous stuff. Like we were getting cited for free climbing because we didn't have nets on the tower to catch us if we fell. We got to figure out ways to overcome the OSHA rules. And 2 of the big ones that we wanted to take on OSHA with was free climbing, which we all free climbed back then, and riding the line, which they said you couldn't ride the drum hoist to the top of the tower. So those were some of the things that we as an industry thought, we get together, we can make our voices heard with OSHA.
And Victor, where were you for the first meeting of Nate?
So I didn't make the first meeting. I got contacted, I think in the fall of that year, and basically we were doing a lot of work at the time for Pyrod, and they had told us, hey, this association is being organized and you need to be part of it. You need to get your application in. I think we were officially 1995 was when we became a member. So we missed the first year.
Right by a hair, right? Now you were saying before the meeting, a lot of the companies were against each other. After the meeting, did you realize that you all had more of a common ground with each other and to work together?
Absolutely. I know Victor. I remember Victor in some of those early meetings speaking up. He had a great voice and sound reasoning, and that's what we found. We started recognizing we had more in common than we had that was against. But before that, we didn't know. We didn't know if we'd get along.
You thought you were just pitted up against each other, trying to get each other's jobs.
Yeah. Somebody did put sugar in one of my gas tanks of one of my drum hoists once.
Never found out who it was.
Never found out who it was.
The original members, what was your vision for Nate to start out? What did you want to tackle, and what did you want the association to become?
Yeah, I think at the very beginning, it was all centered around OSHA. But over time, we realized, you know what, OSHA is probably not our biggest enemy. Then we started just realizing we have a lot of challenges running this business. It's not just climbing towers, it's running business and stuff. And so we thought what Nate needs to do is be a voice for the tower owners, not for the customers, not for OSHA, not for our vendors. Every time we got together in a board meeting, we thought, will this help us as the owner of the tower contracting company? And that was really, for the first 10 years, very strongly what Nate was focused on.
Did you guys try to set standards or try to develop more PPE?
PPE took care of itself, because as soon as we started growing, people like DBI Sala started saying, this is an industry we can sell into. And so they started helping develop PPE for us, but we helped them develop the right PPE. As far as standards, then we're like, okay, OSHA says we can use the hoist, but they say that the hoist has to be built to lift people up, but the hoist have to be built to a certain standard. So we would start developing those standards. And then we started working with the other standard bodies like TIA and ANSI and ASTM and people like that. Nate started to have enough of a voice to do that.
Just due to the amount of work that was happening with the PCS builds, the fatality rates were going up, and we were starting to top, the charts as one of the most dangerous industries. And so there was a tower summit that was held also in Dallas, I believe, and out of that Tower Summit became the NWSA. That's how the NWSA was formed. But it was basically a group to create a credentialing system that would validate workforce knowledge. So now we have a little over 12 or 13,000 workers that are fully credentialed, but this is the time frame. In the last 10 years, we've gone from averaging 10 or 12 fatalities a year down to 1.
Yeah, when I think about Nate 30 years ago, we were cowboys, and we operated that way, and we were proud of it. Today, Nate is a vocational trade similar to plumbers, electricians, carpenters, and it was because of Nate that now we have that level of professionalism among our workforce out there in the field.
Nate has provided countless thousands of hours of volunteer time to provide subject matter experts for the TIA standards, the CTS, the ANSI, the 1048A standard, which is now the Bible. Nate used to strive to sit on these committees and help add value. Now we chair these committees in many cases, and we are the organization that's looked to by others from the outside, whether it's government agencies, the FCC, to basically say, look, this is what we do and this is how we do it. If an accident happens, we want to know about it, we want to analyze it, and we want to make sure it never happens again. That's the benefit. That's really the benefit to the owners, the benefit to the customer, and all the families is sending everybody home safe at night.
Being in the industry before Nate, then being in the industry as Nate was formed, 30 years later, and you see where Nate is now and the big conference, Nate Unite every year, how does that make you feel?
I couldn't be more proud of where Nate has gone over the last 30 years. It's all those things, just little things, one after another, that have made Nate so beneficial to our industry and to my company. And we've created a whole cottage industry of vendors because Nate really does bring big benefits. It's cool to be a part of that for the last 30 years.
I agree with that as well, yeah. Victor, as being the chairman of the board, what are some of the things you want to focus on in the next few years?
Well, especially the last 2 generations go to 4G, go to 5G. Now you're talking about artificial intelligence, things like that, machine to machine, autonomous vehicles, broadband, wireless communications is more and more prevalent in our lives, our children's lives, our grandchildren's lives. So workforce development is going to be huge for Nate, and it's a big push. We have to continue to work with all of our partners. One of the original Bill Carlson lines was, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And Nate needs to be there. When these things happen, whether it's with the carriers, with the FCC, whether it's Department of Labor, OSHA, we need to be there. We need to be part of it. The bigger we become and the more powerful, the easier it's going to be to get things done. And we need support.
Nate's got as good a future as the people make it. It's up to them to do that, and I think they'll get it done.
From the first phone call from Bill to say, hey, let's get together, what do you think his thoughts would be on seeing where Nate is now?
Bill was really proud to be really the founding father of Nate. And I'm sure he's up there in heaven looking down and smiling right now and be pretty proud and happy that it's turned out as well as it has. And now if you have 5 bars on your phone, you can thank Bill Carlson and a whole bunch of tower climbers that came after him for the difference that Nate has made in keeping people connected across the miles across the country.
It just started with one phone call.
Started with one phone call, and
sometimes that's all it needs, just one phone call to start.
Yeah, one phone call make a big difference.
I want to thank you too for your time today and being here and talking with me. And I want to thank you both for everything you guys have done for the industry and everything you've done for Nate and helping it evolve over the years. And I want to thank the tower climbers out there for everything that they do for the industry. Stay safe and thanks for watching.